All right, I think I'll go ahead and get started. And Trinity, just keep letting them in. So today, helping me is Trinity Lopez. She's actually our operations person over here. So she's training a new salesperson that'll help me going forward. As usual, if you have questions, just queue them up in the chat over there. Ask questions. I think there's a Q&A item set up out there. And this is pretty informal, just as always. She'll stop me if I go past an area on there. But again, if you need to have a question answered, just let us know because this is really for you. We're just using this to show everything we're working on right now because there's a lot going on that we want to pull forward. Uh, so Trinity, anything you want to add to that, or just let me go and do it?
Nope, I think you covered everything. Thank you.
All right. So we've been secretly busy doing some stuff. And it's been happening for a while. So let's go ahead and get into it real quick. So first thing is we had a voice of customer, basically a whole bunch of people have been asked about the experience with Oasis and how we're doing and everything like that. And true to the reps that we serve, we got some interesting conversations back, which are all good, to be quite honest. The we need the feedback, the critical stuff, and we got some good stuff back as well. But I'm always the type, I guess, just my personality. I like to see the areas where we need to improve because that's really where we're at. There's a lot in that we learned. And the first area that I want to, basically, these are the three areas we're working on today. So, first of all, make reports easier to use. There's a lot of conversations on that. And what I'm showing today, hopefully, will show where we're starting to change the way we do reports. And it's pretty significant, although I hope it's not too far for some of our users because we do have a lot of people using the current reports and we're trying to make sure that they're easier to use and moving to the new technologies, but not make it so different that people lose the ability to do what they need to do to run their companies today. So that has to happen. Performance tune, performance tune, performance tune. Reports had big opportunities there. Some of these reports were written a decade ago. The My Order Summary Report, the MOSR report, you'll hear me say that occasionally, was literally started in 2016. It went production in 2017 with updates and various changes to the system over the past decade. It is a complete rewrite, and you'll see where that's going. And then the next thing is online done? Well, every time if we bring someone on new that hasn't used Oasis in the past, they're like, hey, looks like you have all the stuff we need to run our business. If I have a current agency that comes online, they're always like, well, you don't have that report, you don't have that button. That's pretty much going to be an interesting conversation today. So that's where we're at. When are we done has a lot to do with this. These are the reports in Oasis. So this is projects, all the reports in there, orders, all the reports in there. And then you get into the invoices, payments, and many more. I was looking at this at the beginning, or actually the end of last year, and we were starting to use, AI. Actually, we'd already been using it for a while. And I was looking at this going, I don't know how we're going to get all this done in a reasonable amount of time. So anyway, some things changed after the first of the year. The AI models got a lot better. And instead of being able to do a cutesy little, bill of material or something like that didn't do a whole lot, we were actually able to stand up significant parts of the system. And we kind of kept quiet about it because we want to see how far we could go and how fast. And still find that out. So it's just kind of pleasant and still a lot of work though. But right now we're using AI to rebuild all the reports, actually the entire system. But this is today we're focused on the reports. So implement new UI guidelines. Another thing that happened over the past decade is the browser technology has changed dramatically. They've gotten a lot better. So, issues that I tried a old browser with the new tech and you just can't do it. But all these new basic browsers we have out there are just so much further along over the past decade. And the UI elements that we had were confined to back then no longer apply. So now with using AI, we're actually able to implement the new UI guidelines that we have here and spread them across so they all feel similar, and it doesn't feel like you're walking through different reports built in different timeframes because they were. We're re-envisioning the reports as we go. So it's not, and you'll see this real quick here in a second when it comes to the mild summary reports and the commissions for account. We're re-envisioning what a report is. You'll still be able to download a PDF, still be able to download a spreadsheet and all those details, but we're really taking this into a slightly different direction that I'm excited about because I'm one of the trainers and I go out and help people, on site. And there's always little things we want to do, and it's like print it out and then go search. Well, we'll be able to drill in a lot of cases. Mobile access is happening, but let's be a little bit realistic here. Some of these reports have a lot going on. So there will be some mobile access, but if you have a tablet, you can actually do a lot of these reports. And actually, I have one of my clients that pulls it up in his Tesla, which is I don't recommend. Don't drive and run reports, please. But we are also using AI to drive reports. This is actually a webinar I did a month or two ago, maybe further. The PAT tools, PAT aging is a biggie, but we'll show you more how we're using our data and including it in with your data. So again, we do keep the separation where if we build a model, only you have access to it. We don't reverse that internally for anything we do, but we add to your model with some data we have. And I'm going to get into that in a second. We'll start building AI into the user interface, and that'll happen later this year. Part of that, the design is done. It's just trying to build some stuff that I think you'll be interested in. So there'll be bigger changes, and what'll happen is we'll keep the current reports as they are. So we're not going to force people that are running their business to make a radical change in the middle of this. So you see these updates as they stream out, and there'll be adders to what you have now. All right. So where are we at with the reports? Well, the models really are doing some neat stuff now. I mean, after the first year, there was the big updates, and I've been very happy with them. Put it mildly. Everything that's in yellow here is basically in dev, and most of that is going to roll out by July. That's where a lot of these are going to roll out. Everything is in green actually is done and is in beta. You'll see some of this today. Some of this we're phasing out. They're just old. So close and file report was generated so you could actually put a label on your box with all the files in it and put it in the attic. Well, most people don't print stuff out like they used to. So anyway, if I have someone who says, I got to have this report to run my business, we'll probably AI and bring it forward. So it's a doable thing. We're just going to see some of these. We can phase them out and just get rid of them. Anyway, so that's projects. Well, and orders. Most of this is done. Some of the blue ones, they would be done, but we're actually re-envisioning those as well. So more on that in a second. And again, same thing for invoices payments. So, and then a ton of reports that I won't go through today. There's other little reviews and everything like that. Our goal for reports in particular is everything's done by August 8th. And that's in production. So it's happening quickly, and it's happening with a lot of extras we're adding in, simply because trainers like myself will go out and work with a customer and say, hey, well, what if we did this? And we can actually implement that very quickly now, which is real nice. All right. The new MOSR. So I don't like clicking all the way through the spreadsheet, so let's kind of jump in here a little bit. And what I want to really focus on as we get into this is the new worksheet UI. And this concept really began with the Milder Summary Report about a decade ago. Actually, the original one is 25 years old, and it works so well, we just keep enhancing this concept a little bit. So how it works is, this is the OASIS online version, and I'll go into My Order Summaries New. Now, notice we have a lot of other new entries in here, and that's how we're distinguishing the new ones from the old ones. We're not going to pull these out just yet, but by August, all the old reports that we have created a decade or so ago will go away, and what will remain are the new ones. So let's open it up. So the way that we're laying out most of the reports, this isn't all of them, but what I'll call the kind of the builder reports will look something like this. And that is, there's a top part that has controls. There'll be a summary part, or actually a report section, and then everything else. So what you'll do is, let me go and just do a reset here. So by default, this report's going to have the manufacturer and then columns by month and year. So let's just run it real quick and do an update. And you'll probably be a little bit slower than that because you have a lot more data than I do, but anybody who's run this report knows it runs quickly. And that is really one of the primary designs. I'll get a little deeper in this here in a second. And the whole concept is, run it quick and not have to put the data in some other system or run a tile. That's another thing that we have where you have to wait for the update. Basically, if you put an order in, we want you to see the order now. Okay. Now, if you notice, we have in here a section where all the reports at, and we'll get into the logos and everything here in a second. And also, if you scroll down there, at least in this report, we have a bar graph at the bottom. And that's one of the design items that we're rolling out, and it may change a little bit, but really the whole concept is have these graphs if they're secondary at below. If they're primary, you will probably see a graph, especially on the aging reports that are done as well, at the top. And what really the thought process there is the aging is really trying to show you where you're at. So if you have a problem, you can kind of see it graphically pretty quickly when it comes to aging and some of the others. So, all right. By the way, these reports are interactive. And there's just a lot of little subtleties in here as well. So let's talk about the data. So I ran it by manufacturer, and if you have all the setup done for Folio, you'll start seeing the manufacturer logo show up. That's really kind of a secondary thing. It's kind of a gee whiz, and I'll get into where that's more important here in a second. But let's talk about this center section here. So if I go back to the show filters here, I have the ability to select my rows. So right now they're on manufacturers, and then my column being months. Okay. And then what time frame I would like to go for. So let me go back to 25 here and then just hit update. So now I get a full 12 months worth of data here. So full 12 months, scroll left, right. And this is one area on a mobile device, in other words, an iPad, if you will, works great. But if you reduce down to an iPhone, you can kind of navigate it. It's just kind of odd to look at. And that's what I'm saying. The mobile works, but there's just so much data here, it's really hard to see on a smaller form factor like an iPhone or other phone device. So, all right. So in here, each one of these elements that we have in here, I'll talk through the various values, but just mechanically or just the details in here, you can click into each one of these and it'll actually show you the transactions behind that cell. Now, they won't add up necessarily to the value that you have here in all cases, and there's a reason for that. The values that you see here in the pop-up, they're really just trying to show you the transaction and very little more. So, by the way, it's doing the entire column right now because I didn't set a little flag in there. But it'll actually show the transactions, and then you can click through to the actual transaction, which is kind of a nice detail there. And that happens throughout the system here. Okay, so I'm going to load up my report. I haven't been in orders yet today, so it's trying to do a few things. Yep, there we go. All right, so then take a look at the items and everything. So it runs pretty quickly after that. All right, so mechanically that's going on there because of the little setting I have in here. Long story, I've been playing with a few things this morning. It will just show the 9 transactions that are in there instead of the entire column. So actually it did show all 9. Oh, I was looking at it wrong. So cool. All right. It is working the way I thought it was. All right. All right. So that's the mechanical part there. Let's get into a little more detail because part of what I want to show today is not just the gee whiz, but actually some of the mechanics behind the way these reports work. And one of the things I get a lot of questions on when I'm out traveling and training people is, why do 2 reports not show the same value? And part of the reason on that is the business that you all are in is kind of complex, and it's hard to describe this to it's really hard to describe this to my peers actually out there that are in IT. They're like, what are you trying to do out there? And one of the areas that pops up a lot is what's the difference between sales and territory sales? We separate these out. And the difference is if you record on the OASIS transaction, the fact that you're getting 33% spec credit, but you're not getting the other 67% or whatever it is because order and destination. What'll happen is inside of OASIS, you'll get a different number. So let's see if I have any like that. I really don't know. Let me get rid of these other columns real quick. These other variables. Now, looks like I don't have any splits on mine. I should have done this earlier. What you'll see on this in a lot of your systems, here's one right here. So what you'll end up here on this specific item in here is if you go in the transaction and you look at it, there'll be actually a territory split on it, okay? The other area that we see a lot of, and that, by the way, that's earnings and overage. If you've seen this problem before, you'll understand my pain, and it's hard to explain to some folks. The other area on that is what do you want to do when it comes to commission overage and margin or profit, however you want to do that, basically the resale side of it. And this is where we give you the capability on a report to show the different types of earnings that you may have as an agency. Okay, so if I get rid of this and now I take a look at the profit versus overage. By the way, your overage split, this is actually income in. This includes the manufacturer's take on that. So if you have a 90-10 split, this will have the 90% of the overage, and then this will have the 100% of the overage on there. So hopefully you understand what I'm talking about there. And then I'll do a commission and do an update on it as well. So again, depending upon your what you have going on there, you'll end up with different values. And what's really trying to show is the commission versus the overage you get on the transactions in there, and then there's no profit. That's probably just a commission only line I have in there. And then I can quickly scroll down and see anything that I'm doing resell on. May not have very many. Oh, have one right there. So again, I could click into it and take a look at it, but it's again the resell items there. Now. Trinity, any questions on that one? Just holler at me because I'm going to pick into a few details here.
Not on that specific, but we did have a good question on are these online specific and will they be added to the desktop version?
I knew I'd get that one. So this specific report will replace the two MOSR reports in desktop, and it'll probably happen late this year. The technology that we're using actually will allow us to back in all these changes into the desktop version, but they're going to show up in the online version first. And it's really kind of I hate to say this, kind of a cost thing. If we get feedback on this report, and make any changes to it, I want to do it in one system instead of two. It doubles my cost, basically. So later this year, the feeling, especially after August, this will settle out pretty well. And then we'll put this into the desktop version, and I'll probably do it the same way. In other words, have the two menus where we have MOSR, MOSR 2, and then MOSR New is what we've been calling this new one. And give it a month for people to yell at us because that happens, and then phase the other two out. Now, I got yelled at, by the way, early on with the development on MOSR 2, and that is we didn't have invoices and payments. Okay, well, they're back, and they work well, but especially with payments, some things don't work as well. Okay, so I'm going to get into some of those details here in a second, but they're all back, and that should help the details here. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to go back into the source and talk about another common set of issues.
One more question. Can you filter this report by a work group?
Yes. A couple of ways to do that. First is you could just do a select and then go in and find your internal and do a work group and just type it in. So ABC. I won't get much in there. So let me cancel. Shoot. I have here. I have too much junk. Oh. Demo. I don't know what I have in here. This may not work well. Oop, there's no data in there. All right, that's the way you do it. I just don't know where my data's at. So good question, but I don't have a good answer or don't have good data to show you. Bottom line is do a select is one option. The other option I can do is I can actually go through and run this by work group, hit update. And we have what we call click filters in here. So I have my example. I click on that. That is basically, notice it did a little reminder up here. It says filter change, please update. But I can also take a look at my filters and say, hey, it has work group equals territory. And there's a difference. Filtering versus selection are a little different. Now, each order inside of OASIS can live only in one work group. So whichever work group you put it in, that's where it's at. But if you just select by sales account, if you have two salespeople splitting that order halvesies, if you do the select for one of those people, you're going to bring the whole order value back. But if you filter, click on their name, if you will, then it filters it. In other words, it'll just show their take of that. It'll show 50% of the value of the order. So hopefully that made sense. I can dig a little deeper if anybody needs on that one. Let's hit update here. Oops, sorry.
And then one more question. Can you print this report?
Thank you. Excel or PDF? So just because again. Nope, it hadn't downloaded. Oh, now notice what just happened right there, and that's something I'm using a Mac and Safari. They block pop-ups, and I almost didn't catch it, but there's a little warning that they have up here anytime you do a download for the first time. And I think it remembers your session. I can't remember on this one, but once you get it, then you actually have the ability to have the spreadsheet. So or the PDF if you want the PDF version. Any other questions? All
I
right.
think
So
that's
now,
it so far.
perfect. Now let's talk. And I go around, like I said, training, and there's a whole group of us here that do support and training and listen to all the business issues that people crash into running an agency. And one of the areas that again, y'all have a complex business problem here. So one of the issues we bump into is what date is used. So if I hit update right here and I look at year month over month over month, what date is that? Okay. And usually it's a complaint. The two reports don't match. Why? Okay. And it's usually the date. I would say it's usually one of the issues we crash into a lot is the date. So when you're working with orders, hold orders, cancel orders, or all orders, I'll talk about the difference here on those two. They're all based on the entry date on the order. So that is one that you control, the entry date on it. And once that order is transmitted, it locks that date on there. There are ways to change it if you had to. And if you make a change order, it will update the value of that order for the date it was entered. So if you have a January order and you do a change order on it in February, it will update the value of the order for January. Okay. And that is an issue for some folks trying to run their business. So we have other concepts in the system. And one of them is called released orders. So we still, I was surprised the other day. I was talking with a couple of reps, and they still do a lot of released orders or hold for releases. And I was kind of surprised because a lot of groups have moved away from that for various reasons. So if you put in big hold orders, then you really run. Yeah, I forgot to talk today. You would rather run it by release date or released orders, and that's going to be the line level release for that item. So if I have 5 items on that order, if I release the first one in January, I'll get a number in January. If I release the balance of it in February, then I'll get the balance of the order in February. So it's by the release date at the line level. Okay. Again, if you cancel that line, then it's go back to that date even by released, and it'll cancel it on that date. So if I cancel my line that was released in January, it'll basically zero out that value for January. So some people like that isn't good enough. Now we need to do a little bit better. So we do have these Delta orders. I won't get real deep into them, but the Delta orders is one that probably is the best for people that really want to track what I'll call changes in valuation on orders over time. And it'll actually show, by the way, when you click on these, it'll give you a little reminder of this, everything I'm talking about here. So the report date basis uses date of the change. So some of the months may show negative values. So basically, if I have an order that is further release in January, and let's say I add to it in February, you'll see a value in February and January. Okay. And again, it takes a little bit of getting used to as far as these different dates, but that is the date of the change versus the release of the entry date. Okay. Any questions on that one? Because sometimes people kind of look at me funny and I don't see faces and it's a little.
No question on that, but we did have a good question in the chat. Somebody asked, if you don't select a work group, will it show up for your entire company?
Yes. By default, you show everything and then you filter down to what you're looking for. I've had people that'll go in and select all customers, and I was like, well, why are you doing this? I want to see all customers. Like, don't select any. Basically, if you want to see the entire company, don't select a work group. And one thing I like about that is it gives me the capability of doing the following. If I run it by work group, work group, it'll show me all of them, and then I can click into the one I want. I think I clicked on example earlier, and then just hit update, and that's the only thing I'll see. Hopefully I got the answer to that. All right, last bit on dates. So the other thing that you'll see here, invoices and payments, since they've been added in, I wanted to make sure everyone understood that the report date basis uses the invoice date versus the date received. Okay, so the date received is on the payment. The invoice is going to be the date, the invoice date itself. Okay, big details here, and it just works. Okay, all right. So now, having talked through those, let's talk about some of the row options and columns. So basically, there's a set of what we call fields, and you can put them as either a column or a row. You pick. Okay. There's new ones in here I want to talk about, but let's and I'm glad you talked on work group there because it's an important one. So by account would be basically by sales account, and I'm not going to click on each one of these. Customers, pretty easy one. Manufacturer, we just did a minute ago. Parent manufacturer, that one's kind of a misnomer on that. That's not going to that won't just show the parent or the conglomerates, if you will. It basically rolls everything up. So you'll have one entry for your major manufacturer that has 15 lines under it, and you'll have another line for the single brand. So it doesn't get rid of the single brand companies. It just puts them on equal footing report wise, so you can see the value of the conglomerate versus all the little guys together. So it's just another way of looking at it. Manufacturer product type, that is by the manufacturer. So that's a way of taking your controls manufacturers and reporting on them separate from the lighting manufacturers or anything else that you might have in there. This is, I think, is going to go away with something I'll show you here in a minute. Okay, order status, released, whatever it is, order type, project versus stock versus some people have other variations on that's in there as well. I'll just do this one real quick, and then we'll get into project, sample, stock. That's all I have in this system. All right. Now, let's get to the more interesting stuff. Quoters, easy, CSRs. So specifiers is another one that we've been wanting for a while. And this is new as of this report. We did not have this in the minor sum reports in the past. And part of it is using specifier will likely make totals inflate. Basically, you can't add them together. If you have 4 specifiers on the job, it's going to take the value of their order and basically be 4 times the value of that order. But if you're trying to report and find out basically how much volume do you have running through a specific specifier on equal footing with the rest of them, this is the way you can do that. And I don't have much in here. I have a bunch of junk actually in this database. Apologize for that. But anyway, you'll actually see your specifiers where I just have, unfortunately, not very much. Let me go back a year. Maybe I'll have more. Yay. So anyway, my engineer, I have no idea. This is a test database we play in quite a bit. So bottom line is now you can run my specifier. But these totals down here, we try to make them where they work out, but we can't guarantee it. It just has to deal with the way you have different specifiers on the job and the way the layout. So we can't guarantee that these totals down here will make sense. Okay. All right. Now, more interesting stuff. So let's talk about product. No, let's do vertical market first, because this is a new one, and I think it's important with the conversation here in a minute. So if you have been putting the vertical markets on your jobs, you should already see the vertical market in your order. And even on desktop today, you can run by vertical market, which is becoming more and more important for a lot of folks. I don't have very much in here, but now I can run report by vertical market and find out what my coverage is within that industry. Again, you have to go put it on the job, or at least the order once gets flung out there, and then you can run these reports. I'm getting a lot of conversations with people on this one. Any questions so far?
Yes. So somebody asked, can you save the report after you set up all your filters so you can select to run it again instead of redoing it every time? And then if you can save them, can you assign them to other users?
Almost. We can do that in the desktop version right now. If I go back real quick and let me show here, there these customizable quote listings. So the people that have been using Oasis desktop for years, there's what I would conveniently call the 5 little minions when I'm out training folks. That report builder is setting the standard for the way we save reports in online, and it's pretty much the same as what's happening in the desktop. But because the technology is more sophisticated, we're letting that project that's almost done drive the way we're going to save the reports. So the quick answer is today, no. But very quickly you'll have back in here save report, and everything will save, and you'll have the same process you have today, and that is you can delegate that out to somebody who can't create reports and say, yeah, you can run the MOSR report, you just can't change anything because your access is restricted, and that'll give you the ability to give a salesperson their report by specifier, whatever it is you need to send them. So quick answer is not today, but will happen basically before the end of the year. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Now I got to do some AI. So I'm going to run by product name. Okay. You probably in your databases might give this a try. And if your browser is not unhappy at the end, you can do it. So we don't throttle our reports. And you may be grumpy at us. Go ahead and just yell at us if it does something, because we're looking for how far we can push the technology in a lot of cases. In this case, what's happened is I'm running it by by product name. And what happens is we have Folio, which is basically a little AI brain back there, one way of looking at it. And it's taking this report and running it against the Folio database, extracting the product names and images, as you can see. The reason why I find that important is you have a zillion different ways you might order any one of these items out there, different catalog numbers, different color temps, whatever it is. With Folio, we can now group those together and have you just show that one product, regardless of the catalog number actually on the order. Okay, so everything else works the same. So I can actually click on this and hit update, and it'll just show me that one product. Now I can actually go back to my filters and flip it. So anybody who's run my order summary reports in the past kind of knows you can basically lock in. So I'm filtered by one work group and cut sheets. That's the reason why I have so little data. I'll tell you what, let's reset so I can see more. And go back to product name real quick, hit update. This might be another one that might be good to save. Yeah, I see more data. All right, so now I've locked in on it. I'm just going to see that one product. And I'm curious who's buying this. So I'll simply flip over and say, oh, show me my customers, and hit update. So here's everybody. And again, this is a test database. I don't have, and I'm lazy. I just use a couple of different distributors on here, or I could run it by specifier. That's another way too. And literally it's saying, oh, here's the orders that you have for that product and the values they are by month, or some other tricks I'll show you here in a second. And I can click into it, show the order, and actually jump over to the order. So kind of nifty. And go ahead and let that load. By the way, these are being redone as well, so they should load a little quicker before long. All right, so close those. They do pop into another tab, so that's another thing I'm a little bit worried about, because now you may end up with 40 tabs open, and it just kind of watch that. So we've been fighting that back and forth. All right, any questions so far? Because that is one of the big things we're doing is trying to do more product analysis here, and I'm going to show you some other tricks here in a second. But any questions first? All right, so by the way, I have this one product on here. Why not run it by vertical? So where are we actually getting sales? And again, I don't put verticals on mine, but where are we actually gaining sales with that specific product? So if I bring something in, or the manufacturer is trying to get us to sell into hospitals or whatever, then I can actually track that here and find out exactly how that's working out. Are we actually closing sales there? Okay. Now, let's go ahead and change this a little bit more. I'm going to remove the filters here and kind of reset for a second, but I do want to stay with this product name for a second. And what I'll do is I'm going to run this year over year. Okay, and I'm going to run it for the last 3 years and hit update. So now we can actually take a look, and it may take a second for that to run. I can take a look at my products and see how they're falling off. By the way, the blanks are basically the ones where we couldn't determine exactly what the product was. Again, there's a lot of test junk in this particular database. So anyway, for you, hopefully it's a lot better. But as it finds them, it'll show you basically year over year how your sales are going on it. So here's my test product I've been using for a while now. I can, in your case, hopefully see how I've been doing year over year, whether I'm gaining ground or losing ground on that item, and then start drilling into it and asking some questions. Pretty neat little deal. Anyway, I find it interesting to be able to do that. I've been doing something similar with our data and really help me understand how we're doing on various products too. So it's kind of a neat little system there. So, any questions so far? Let me go back to my deal here, make sure I didn't miss anything. MOSR. All right, so we've got the new worksheet style. You'll see here in a second where commissions per account is very similar as well. Okay, we can drill into the transaction, and that's going to be basically most of the reports, just giving us the ability to drill straight into that transaction, see why it is there, and adding into our result. Performance tuning, a lot of these are running faster. It's just the tech and the way we did it. It's hard to explain, but bottom line is they just work better. Okay. Mobile ready, I've already identified on that. If you have an iPad, it's probably going to work out real well. If you're using an iPhone, it's probably not because there's just a lot of data here. I've talked about the order data and the date issue that we crash into, and the invoice and payment is back as well. So hopefully the people use that. Vertical markers I've talked through, specifiers I've talked to about the limits, and then the AI is really just trying to do the product name. Oh, and I almost forgot. I forget much. The other item you can do is product category. And this is an area I fully expect to get yelled at a little bit. And what we've done on this, oh, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Let's see, filters, product category. Inlet. Oh, I did something wrong.
Brian, one quick question.
Yeah.
When you're under row and you select specifier, what is this pulling from? Distributor and contractors are in that list when we run them?
Yeah, good question. So I'll come back to this in a second. So if you go for the specifier on here, the goal of the specifier is in true OASIS fashion, there's what we call the specifiers area. Let me see if I can pull something up real quick. Got something to save here. Oh, I know what it's doing. Do a reset update. Shoot. Really good question. Yeah, that'll work. All right. So, and again, this is the online version of this, but regardless whether you're online or not, there's really a couple areas where you can look at a customer. So the customer is here, okay, and this is ignored. So this may be a specifier that you're selling some samples to. So they said, hey, the samples look really cool. We want to hang on to them and put them in our building or whatever. So that it'll ignore that for that specifier concept. Now over here in the specifier section, again, this looks a little different than online, but it has the same concept. It'll take everybody that's not a direct or an indirect customer. That's a setting in your system, and usually that's for reps, that'll be distributors and contractors. It's going to ignore those entries over here in the specifiers and only pick up the ones that are showing as let me see. Nobody here will show because I don't have anybody in here. And this particular one is set up as a distributor. Sorry, I ran that by manufacturer instead of specifier. So bottom line is no distributors, no contractors, just anybody else you have set up as a specifier and recorded them in the specifier section. Okay. All right. So typical, I show something and I realize I messed something up the other day. But let me go back to it anyway, because this product category has been one I've been playing with quite a bit because of feedback with various folks. And right now it's showing the manufacturer name. It's actually supposed to be showing the actual, troffer or pole or whatever it is. And unfortunately, I copy pasted some stuff, and this was me, and I'll own it. But it's showing the manufacturer names instead. The reason why that's important is now we can actually say, well, how many troffers we sell, and it may or may not be important. But if we really have the different product categories there, we can actually start looking at our volume based on product category. The reason why this has been a conversation with some folks so far is that everybody looks at it a little bit different, and we will probably be changing this a little bit. I don't want to get too deep in this right now, but we're leading out with some product categories that we've had and been building for a while now. And the thought process is over time, we're going to make them more detailed, if you will. So right now we have like troffer and flat panel kind of put together, and we believe we need to pull those apart, but we don't want to get too carried away because the product categories work well as long as you can group some pieces together. So I don't want to get too carried away on splitting them up. So hopefully that made some sense. It's hard to explain. So any other questions in there? Otherwise, I'll shift to commissions per account.
Nope, we're all good.
All right. Let's go to commissions per account. So commissions per account, let me make sure I didn't miss anything real quick. Sorry, I keep clicking the wrong spot there. Let me see. Yep. By the way, a lot of the analysis is done to run that. If it doesn't show up immediately when you're running some of that, just you might let us know, but usually the next day it's figured it all out because it has to do some analysis on your system and then record all that information in your instance of Oasis so it runs quickly. So, that's the cache for speed thing. Let's see. Yep, I've already talked through all that. So good. We're ready for a commissions for account. So I looked at my time and kind of freaked out. Sorry. All right. MOSR. We've already talked through that too. And commission for account. All right. So this is the payday report for a lot of folks. So the current one that you use, by the way, where I'm going is the payment section. Okay. And then go to commissions for account. Okay, and also notice all the new stuff in there. Sorry, you got payment summary reports. They're new, and they work just like the payment summary reports that you see in desktop. They're just kind of brushed up and have this new look and feel. And the inside sales performance report, if you used it, it's in here as well. It's been updated, but I'm not showing that today. So commissions per account is here. Again, I'm leaving it with last year on all my items. If you run this report, it's usually a little bitty pop-up, and you have these 6 blanks here and some check boxes just like this. Basically, you just run as an update. Now, right now, this is running in a way that I think most people will be able to run the report. There's some tweaks I may make a little bit later on it or have one of the folks do it here. But we start out like this. Now, you can download Excel. We're bringing back the PDF, by the way. But the download right here will bring back an Excel. I'll show that here in a second. But the main thing that we've done is kind of rethought the whole process, and it's really been from across the board. One of them is the back end has changed a little bit. The original commissions for account is about 25 years old. It was one of the first reports we created, and it updated over the years. But the new one we feel is better at calculating some weird overage and profit scenarios. So there's certain profit. Actually, the whole concept of resale 25 years ago was kind of like a bad word or something you didn't say in public. Is just one of those little dirty things that everyone did, but nobody talked about. Well, that report was created back then. This one has all that knowledge built into it. And the way we do overage, actually, the way we calculate the overage is now more natural, and that has to deal with just the enhancements we've done to the system over the years. So this report has all those. Not saying the current commission for account is bad. It's just better in this scenario. So I'm already hearing from some of the folks testing this that the results are better or more in line with what you'd expect. Now, having said all that, the front end looks totally different because it's just not a PDF. That's all you got in the past is just a PDF. Right now, the file menu for printing the PDF isn't there. It'll come back in. It's just one of the final things to do. Now, having said that, what we have is the different sections. So when you run the report in the past, you usually get a set of pages for each salesperson that was on the job or sales account. And in this case, you have a drop down. So let's go and pick on one of these. I'm going to pick on Trinity because she has the first $1 billion order I've ever seen. And it actually leads to a nice little discussion on this. It shows why I really like this report. So again, I could pull this and I can actually download just her stuff if I'd like, and it will actually identify it'll have multiple tabs here. One's for the payments, which I haven't got to yet. One's for the adjustments. So all that's in there. I've been talking to a few people on whether to put this extra information here because it's kind of neat. The top customers and the top manufacturers, these are kind of neat. I don't know if they belong in the spreadsheet or not because usually you're taking this over to do some internal processing with it. And some of this extra stuff is neat, but it's not really useful for the day job, if you will. Now, if I take a look at the payments, these are actually the entries on each one of the invoices that you normally see. So everything's the same as what you normally see on the commissions for account report. That is, you see the invoice date, the invoice and the invoice date, the PO and the entry date, the check and the date received. Okay. You see the customer and manufacturer that's on here. Okay, don't ask me about the names of this. My people plan, so it's kind of cool. And then here's your big, huge order that Trinity made. That's kind of cool. We received $50,000 on it, and then we split it out. I already have her entry set up where she gets 10% of whatever is booked in there. So we got 50,000 in, 45 goes to the agency, and 5,000 goes to her. So commission of $5,000 to her, and then it's just commission. And the reason why this is important, again, we separate the buckets out all the time, and we choose to do it this way, to where we literally show the commission, the overage, and the earnings, basically the sum of those, all pulled together, so we can hopefully show it a little bit more plainly to whoever's trying to run the report. So. Rate of earnings, simply just take the earnings divided by the sales, and it just gives you a little bit of details there. So it's 5% off the invoice, not the order, by the way. And the way this thing was invoiced is kind of fun. Now, just out of curiosity, I looked at this previous line, and I was going to take it off for today's meeting. I was like, no, I want to leave this in because this one's kind of weird. We got a big, massive check-in on this thing. And it's like, well, what's going on here? Why isn't any money come to the agency or the salesperson? I don't get it. What's going on here? So what I'll do is I'll click on it, and that will actually open this invoice within the system, and that can start looking at what's going on here. So, okay, whatever. Let's go to items real quick. Oh, that's why. And anybody who's been working in Oasis for a while knows that we don't actually pay the salespeople off of the deposits. We need to actually start billing the customer and having those shipments go through. And once you book and identify each one of those invoices having something paid on it, then we start releasing money for paying the sales force. So anyway, that was kind of a neat little thing there to just kind of pull that together. And it gives me the chance to kind of show one of the resale headaches we get a lot of conversations on. So any questions so far?
Is this report available now, commissions for account?
So it will, all these servers will update on the weekend. So we have some beta users been playing with it already, and some other goodies I'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, all this all goes out with our standard monthly update, and that will happen on Saturday, basically. Now, if you're asking for desktop, this will be another one that will happen after the end of the year, and this will be another one that we will include in the desktop version. So let me go back for a second. On the My Order Summary Report, I did show you a couple of things we probably won't be able to include on the desktop version. It'll have generally the look and feel and have pretty much all the same features, but the product name and the product category won't be there. So basically, some of the AI we just can't do off your local server, and it just has to do with the way it talks back to the big folio brain back there with all the product knowledge. Okay. All right, that's commission.
Can you run by reconciled date, not the date the check was received?
What do you mean by reconciled date? The date is posted?
Not sure, wasn't specified, but if they come back, I can let you know.
Yeah. Pop back on that one because I've heard similar things in the past. Right now, we do off of the reconcile date, or I'm sorry, the date received, and that's the date we kind of move back and forth, or you have control over, and that's easy enough for us to change on it. But I would want to run it through our team here to make sure that all the trainers and the support people understand what the ramification is, because we get a lot of calls on stuff like that. But I'm not opposed to that. We just have to kind of talk it through.
The date it is posted.
Okay.
Or not posted.
I tell you what, Trinity, if you'll take that as a do for us, and what I want to do is talk to a few agents on that. If you can identify who that was, maybe we can talk to them as well. And basically, we have a bunch of agencies we talk to pretty regular, and the whole concept there is we run concepts like this past them, and sometimes we're like, yeah, you should do that right now, and then we obviously make that a higher priority and get it done. So, all right. I think let me take a look where I'm at on my deal here. So commission per account, payday report from many agencies for the Salesforce, rewritten using native OASIS transaction. This is basically the area where it's, I'm already seeing where it's better on like overage and resell. It just works better. And I already talked to that. We did use AI to create it, okay, and that also helped us do a bunch of performance tuning. There's actually a few more performance tuning things I want to do in there, but most of it's done now. And we do not have AI in the commissions per account. So as I get some interesting conversations like, you're not statistically going to tell me what I should pay my people, are you? It's like, no. Well, bite my tongue. There's a Pat aging report that kind of helps with some of that. But that's for planning. And this is, it has to be hard numbers. In other words, we got so much money in the bank. And now how do we share that with the sales force so we don't go broke? And that's really one of the main things behind commissions per account. All right. So no AI in it. Just helped us create it. All right. So what do you need to expect from the, go ahead.
On the commissions per account, I got some clarification.
Okay.
If you get a check at the end of the month, they may not process it till the next month. How would that translate?
So what I normally recommend to folks on that one is the date received. Go ahead and post that in. You lie to the system is the best way to explain what I tell people. And so if I got it in, let's say I get it in right now today, and it's like I'm not going to make it. I'm short staffed, and it's just not going to happen. What I would do is I'd actually post that with the date received of June 1st. And just put a note somewhere that says, I posted it, we received it on the 27th, but didn't post it till June 1st. That's what most people do already. That's what I do in training. Okay. But I'd still go ahead and take that back and see if there's something we're missing on that Trinity and kind of run it by, because that's the standard answer is what I gave, and it may not fit for the rest of the conversation there. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and jump to the next. Any other questions though?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Don't like running long, so I'm trying to cut it off. All right. So what to expect from the new report. So there's a lot happening here, and I'm not even scratching the surface. There's just a lot of different things happening. So MOSR 2, Commission for Accounts and Others, will be released this weekend. That was an item that I had a moment ago. So the new UI guidelines, I'm hoping to show you what is happening here. Now, the report builders with the 5 minions and again, the customizable orders report and all those that a lot of people have been running for a while now. They will still have the 5 little buttons and kind of have a little different look and feel by design. Okay. And most of the other reports, especially on Monday when the system updates over the weekend, you'll see a lot of them have the same look and feel. These are our new UI guidelines. With AI now, we're actually able to apply those more rapidly. So we're not looking at in 10 years what it looks like today. So you'll see some of that, but we're not going to do it all the time. So that's kind of my promise to you on that is I'm not going to change it every time, although I could. This is kind of cool that we have that capability now. But we will do continuous improvement. So new fields, selection, filters. There's a lot of stuff planned, a lot of stuff we want to do for a while now, and we're just going to start including that into these updates that we have out there. Trying also not to get too far away from the way you use it today and really causing problems for you. We're trying to help you solve problems, not create new ones. So continuous performance tuning, that's happening all the time. Now, I do have some folks running the public API, especially for commissions for account. I'd barely gotten it stood up, barely gotten it pushed out, and we had a whole bunch of people saying, I need it. So that's actually been happening right now. And the reason for the public API, and public means secured for your use, public for us. In other words, we'll support it as an API into the future. And that basically is just the understanding that we're going to run our reports off of it, but also you can use that same API if you wanted to build a backend system or pull it into something like Power BI. It seems to be working for a lot of folks. And our whole goal is just get really, really good at reports so you can use OASIS. But there are cases where Power BI and some of these other tools just make a lot of sense. So, frankly, they're working areas that we may not want to go for various reasons. All right, browser-based, it's all browser-based. Again, mobile-ready, and the desktop, over time, some features may not translate, and again, back on the PAT stuff. But again, after the August production for all the online, that's when we'll start the process to pull what we can back into the desktop, and you'll see the dash new. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, later this year, there's going to be an even bigger update when it comes to AI, and it's actually going to include into the interface. My goal is to make sure that all the reports you see today kind of behave the way they do today, even after this rolls out. But we're trying to give you more tools so you can actually do some interesting stuff. Almost let the cat out of the bag. So more later this year, and I'll stop right there. All right. Last bit. Any questions? So I don't run over here. Okay, I do appreciate your time. If you have any questions on this list, let us know. Support's ready to dig into these if you have any questions. And I am excited to actually have some of these reports when I run out and start training some folks. And several of them are online only. So this is going to be a lot of fun because I think it just works better. So there you have it. Thank you for your time and talk to you later.